I love the wisdom quote, "Practice makes perfect" isn't necessarily true. Perfect practice makes perfect. When we practice, if we're using our skills and techniques in a way that does a disservice to what we're learning, practice actually isn't that beneficial. When it comes to getting masterful at moving sexual energy through our body, how we practice makes all the difference. I'm a huge advocate for a ritual that I like to call sexual meditation. It's an occasion of self-pleasure, but we completely set aside any goal of reaching orgasm. It's not about reaching orgasm at all. It's about completely being present to what's alive and moving in our bodies as we self-pleasure. It's about getting deeply attuned and sensitive to the way that energy moves through our body. Sometimes it feels really obvious and there's like a gross, intense sensation. And sometimes it's really fine and minute, subtle. When we engage in a really mindful self-pleasure practice, we're deeply present to what's going on in our body. It helps us detect whether we have something subtle or grandiose happening in our system. And we can use these tools and practices to make an informed decision on how we want to play with it in the moment. I'm a loud advocate of practicing energetic movement through our body when we're alone. If we're with a partner, that's a whole other sexual being that we have to be present with while we're learning these practices. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's totally great to practice with a partner as well. So nothing against that. I find that the practice becomes more effective when we're able to do it alone. We're able to use the tools and techniques any way that we want to without needing to consider another person in that particular moment. Something that's critical to learning this practice is that we avoid pornography. Did I lose you? I sure hope not. Hear me out, please. When we are consuming pornography, it's activating a part of our neurochemistry that experiences pleasure. Pornography tends to be all about amplifying our neurochemistry and can actually take us away from being deeply present with what's going on in our energy system. When it comes to a sexual meditation ritual, I strongly encourage you to do it without pornography so that you have no digital screen level distractions that can take you away with being present to the tools, techniques, and how your body is responding to them. Sexual meditation is all about mastery, and being distracted by a neurochemical frenzy that's elicited by a digital screen has very little to do with mastery. Instead, stay off your digital devices, close the door, lock it, be with yourself completely. Close the blinds, create an atmosphere where you can relax deeply into presence with your body. Once that is established, then find ways to really play with your arousal rate. What I mean by that is make it as pleasurable as possible. I am a huge fan of using really high quality self-lubricants. Water lubricants tend to be the most eco-friendly, but in my experience, a lot of them tend to leave like a sticky film on our skin. So my personal preference leans towards silicone-based lubricants. They're silky, they last a long time, we have to apply less, and they don't leave that sticky residue that water-based lubricants tend to. Ultimately, the choice is yours. I like using lubes in sexual meditation because it can help me amplify my arousal rate and really get intimate to how energy and pleasure spikes in my body. It can help me really play that line right on the edge of the point of no return. I love in my personal practice to just hang out there right before the point of no return and see how long I can sustain pleasure at that space. The longer that we can learn to sustain pleasure from that amplified state without spilling over, the more it expands our capacity to stay there with a lover. Additionally, from that amplified state, it gets really fun circulating that energy through our bodies. When we're in that peak state, sending it down into my feet, love it. Bringing it up my legs, back up through my core. I can engaging the microcosmic orbit and just circulating it over and over and over and over again. Like, awesome. So nourishing and empowering to self-pleasure in a way where orgasm is actually off the table, at least for a time. The message that I want to drive home is we really want to set the stage for us to be deeply present with our bodies, amplify our energy, and just play with it. Play around with the tools, the breathing practices, the techniques, see what works for us so that when we are with a lover, we can engage what we know how to do deeply. When it comes to ejaculating during a self-pleasure ritual, it's really all up to you. Something that we also want to learn is getting to know how our body responds to ejaculation. And this is something that takes practice, a lot of really fun practice. What I will say about that is I strongly encourage you to try this practice and not ejaculate at least 2 or 3 sexual meditations in a row. Just try it. Most likely it won't be a life or death situation for you, and you can really get to know how it feels to build sexual energy in the body and store it in the body instead of spilling it out and releasing it. Having that direct life experience of building energy, holding it, and living your days as they go on with it, getting to know what that's like is so critical for really getting to know the true magic of this practice. A rule that I try to follow myself is that I don't ejaculate until I absolutely feel like my body needs it. It needs some type of energy release in order to bring my system back into balance again. I try to avoid ejaculation just for pleasure, not all the time, but a lot of the time, because I know the pleasure that comes from multiple full-bodied orgasms, coupled with living with this vitality-enhanced body and system, the pleasure and the magic and gifts that I get from that, to me, outweighs the benefit of an ejaculative orgasm.